Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at Riderflex. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the Riderflex show for updates on new episodes. And by the way, if you haven't already, check out the book we recently launched, The Riderflex Guide, Inspiring and Hiring, available for purchase on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Traci Poe on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Traci.
Hello, Steve.
You have to forgive my, I have a little, I don't know if you see this line on my head or this. I got a little sunburn action going on. We went on a snowmobile trip, a little Riderflex team snowmobile trip this weekend, and I forgot to take some sunscreen. Not a good idea.
I love it though. You have that glow.
Yeah, it's got the glow. It's right before it all starts peeling off my forehead.
I love it.
Oh, but anyway, great to see you. For the listeners,
Yes.
Traci and I went to college together at USAO, the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma. So we go way back. We
do. So do you remember that you were the one who got me involved in the student government?
That doesn't surprise me. I remember trying to get a lot of people in there because I was recruited into student government too.
Yeah.
Is that what happened? Did I talk you into coming to one of the meetings or something?
You talked me into running for president. And do you remember that now?
I'm starting to. Yeah.
Of the student body. You came to me and you said, "Hey, I'd really like you to run because you wanted to be vice president because you were able to run the meetings." And so do you remember that? So you asked me to run for president. So I did. Right. And I won. So that was all Steve Urban.
Well, it was all you. That's great. Now, what year were you student body president? What year would that be?
Good grief. I graduated in 87. So
that'd be 86,
86, 87, something like 86.
That. And was, let's see, right in there, before that, there was another guy that was president, and then Alex Greenwood was actually in there somewhere too.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Boy, it all that's so long ago. For the listeners, we're talking about, let's see, 85 or you started there in 84? Did you start in 84? Okay.
84 to 87.
I started in 85 and went to 89. You graduated in 3 years?
I did.
Nice. Well, that's because you were super smart.
Well, I went constantly all year long. I was going even in the summer. So
now I was two things. First of all, I was kind of an asshole back then because I was way super cocky. And I feel, so often in my life now that I'm in my 50s, I think back, I'm like, God, I was kind of a dick back then. Like really, I was just super. And I think my overconfidence and my cockiness was actually a self-defense mechanism for being insecure, a little bit.
Wow.
Insecure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I can honestly say, not blowing smoke, I can honestly say I didn't pick that up from you.
No?
I picked up very focused, driven, determined, going about your business. That is honestly what I picked up.
Well, thank you. I that's good news. I'm sure were we at some parties together too? I'm sure we were. I'm guessing. I don't know. Were you a partier? Because I was.
No, I went with my best friend. She liked the socializing. I'm actually an introvert and a timid introvert. And so Bonnie would just kind of drag me everywhere. And so I would go to some of the parties, but I didn't drink. I just watched everybody having fun and just stood there kind of horrified. And I just wanted out because, again, I would have rather been in my dorm room, just doing my own thing. So I did go to some of the parties, but I would not classify myself as the partier.
Now, you call yourself an introvert, but weren't you like a communications major? And didn't you do some drama or some acting or something too, or no?
Oh my goodness, no. I took I took like acting 101 or
Okay.
something like that. And whoo, that was a really bad experience. That was a bad
uh,
experience. So no, I was not on stage. That was not me. But yes, I was communication,
that's right.
and I really was out there a lot, but that ultimately is not who I am
Interesting.
comfortable with being. And so
Interesting.
I've had this conversation with quite a few people recently because they don't see me as an introvert, but
I know.
I truly am. And
Interesting.
so
Okay. All right.
doing things like this, or going to networking, or going and running a workshop or that kind of thing, I can be on, but then as soon as it's over, just let me go to my corner somewhere and just decompress. And because it is draining on an introvert to go put
oh, no
yourself
doubt.
out
No
there.
doubt. No doubt. Yeah.
So I just kind of have this moment of crash when I'm done. But I just feel like, and I know that we're going to get to this later because I kind of know your formula, and I jumped in talking about college. But I when I'm on, and not in an inauthentic way.
mm,
It's just well, I'm a Christian, and
mm,
so I believe God called me to this, and so He just gives me what I need in the moment. And
mm.
so,
Okay.
anyhow,
Okay. Did your faith, was that from your parents, and has that been with you since childhood? And why don't you roll that into telling me about your family?
sure, sure. So I know that you always talk about your early childhood and were you a rebel or what? And so I would say no, I was not. And I was active, very, very active, but not. I'm a rule follower to this day,
Okay.
and so to break a rule is really uncomfortable for me. And
Ah,
so, so going back, my dad's dad was a pastor, and
okay.
so I have that in my background. And my mom she was saved as a teenager. And so it was very important for her, for us to be in church. And so I would say from childhood on, I was in church. Now, as I became an adult, I wasn't as active, but
Sure.
I was
Mm,
still,
mm.
my faith was still very, very important to me.
And has been
So
throughout your life now.
it has, and that's not saying I haven't had phases of my life where I wasn't walking the talk, if that makes sense. But it has always been an integral part of who I am and what matters to me.
Tell me,
So,
tell me
yes.
about your mom and dad a little bit. What'd your mom do
Mhm.
for a living? What'd your dad do? And were they married the whole time you
Yes.
okay. Are they still married?
Yes. My mom passed last year, but
Oh,
they
I'm
were
sorry.
married up until then. So I'll talk about that in a second. But my
Okay.
mom was, for the most part, a homemaker as I was growing up.
All right.
And then when I became a teenager, uh, you know, she didn't really need to drive us around. I have a brother, an older sister, and a younger brother.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you remember Chickasha Williams Shoe Store. Do you
Oh
remember
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
So she worked there. So, when we were older, and I was in college at that point. So, yeah, she was a stay-at-home mom
Okay.
until we were really much older. And,
Mm,
when we were younger, did the sewing clothes, and, just
mm, mm.
took that role very seriously. And, even for my dolls, she would sew clothes for my dolls.
Oh, really?
She would.
Wow. All
And
right.
she was the, make the cinnamon rolls from scratch kind of a mom. And so my dad was a hospital administrator slash nursing home administrators. That's kind of what he did. That's in his background. He's retired now, but that's what he did.
Okay. And
So
did he work in Chickasha, Oklahoma, or in the city, or where was he?
he was kind of all over at that age. When we were in college, he was kind of retiring at that point. And
Okay.
he 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 had a kind of a knack for rule follower. I think I get it from my dad. This just
Mm.
clicked,
Yep.
just clicked.
Yep.
So he would have nursing homes call him in even after he retired, because let's say they had a director and the director got them into hot water with whoever the governing body was. And
Mm-hmm.
so they would call him in to fix things. And
Okay.
so he would come in and he would fix whatever the infractions were, get everything kind of righted again. And
Mm.
then they would hire a new person. So he was always interim. Well, at least at that retirement age, he acted as interim
Okay.
until things could get fixed and they could find the right person to bring in, and then he would go to the next one. So he was kind of all over when later in his
Okay.
career.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So no crazy stories for me then from your high school days or anything. There's no rebel stuff in there. You never arrested, never had to call your dad from the sheriff's office. Nothing fun.
No, but I will tell you, when I was in high school, junior or senior, I don't know, this is how much of a rule follower I am.
Okay.
I was late to class. And so, or about to be late, wasn't late, about to be late to class. And some kids were zooming through the hallway. So I tucked in behind them and zoomed with them. And when we got to class, we got in trouble for walking too fast in the hallway.
That
And I was mortified. I was
Wow. Okay.
mortified.
Oh my gosh. If that is your rebel story, holy cow. Yeah. You were pretty, straight
Well,
laced person. Okay.
I
Uh,
was.
all right. All right. Very good. Tell me, so after school, you went on to get
Yes,
your master's, I know,
I
but,
did.
yeah, talk to me now. What about your current life now? Are you married, kids, was married, have partners, was social life? Give us the story, Traci.
Do you want to hit that now? Okay.
Yeah.
So I am remarried. So we have a blended family
Okay.
with 5 adult children now. They were not adults when we got married, but
Ooh,
they were
oh.
younger. So we've been married about 12-ish years now.
Okay, good,
So
good. That's great.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they're all grown and you have five. So how many were yours?
Mhm. Two. I
Okay.
have two.
All
So
right.
2 of mine, 3 of his. And so 2 of them still live at home,
Okay.
but they kind of use their bedroom as just, it's a hotel basically. They're gone all the time.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
working and,
totally.
have very,
Mm-hmm.
very productive lives.
You
So
making them pay rent?
anyhow, no, but they have to pay for their own gas, their own car insurance, that kind of thing.
Nice.
They're even actually buying groceries. I am so busy and I don't like going grocery shopping. So they'll both come in with their own groceries.
What's your husband do?
He is a mortgage lender. So he's
Mortgage
been
lender.
doing
Okay.
that.
All
Yeah,
right.
he's
All
been
right.
doing that for years and years, and he loves helping people get into a home.
Okay.
So that's kind of, he just loves helping people. And
How'd you
it's
meet him?
in well, through church.
Okay.
So he and his then wife went to the same church as me and my then husband, and then they left and went to a different church. And in his divorce he came back, and at that time I was divorced. But just a long history. My youngest and his youngest are 5 days apart,
Okay.
and so they were babies together at church. So known them
Mm.
for just a really long time.
How about that? Now you can confess here on the podcast. Now, even when you were
Sure.
married and he was
Mm-hmm.
married,
Mm-hmm.
you see him
No,
across.
no,
You're like, hey,
no.
hey,
Mm.
come on now, Traci.
No, no. And that's what was so wild was, okay, we're doing full confession here, right? And I
Full
am an open
confession.
book. I am an open book. So after my divorce with the kid's dad, I was out. I was out on the marriage, dating, falling in love. No, 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 no,
You're like,
no.
I'm done. I'm done with men.
Done,
I'm done with relationships.
done, absolutely done. And so, and I hope it's okay for my son for me to say this, but he was little and he used to say, Mom, can I have a dad? And their dad was kind of in the picture, so
Okay.
don't take that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Mom, can I have a dad? I want a nice dad. And I'm like, son, you better pray, because I'm not doing that again. And for years, he kind of kept after me, not, constantly, but periodically. And so I made a list. You hear about making the list of the things that you want in somebody.
Sure.
Most people do 3 things, 5 things. I made a list of like 93 or 97 things.
What?
No
Wow.
joke.
Okay. The chances of somebody checking the boxes on all 97 are slim.
Exactly. And that's why I did that. I'm like, okay, okay.
Uh,
Lord, if you can bring somebody who ticks all of these boxes, we'll talk.
uh,
So coming into when I finally opened my heart up, my son came to me again, and I just prayed and I was like, okay, Lord, if this is your will, then you provide me somebody I know, which
okay.
all of the single guys I knew I wouldn't have married. Not that there was anything wrong with them. I loved them, but not for me. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? I had
Hmm.
some
Yeah, sure.
really good single friends.
Okay.
I want it to be somebody I know and somebody to tick all these boxes.
All right.
There you go,
All right.
God. Impossible.
What's your
No.
husband's name? What's your husband's name?
Rob, Rob.
Were you like Rob comes over to you, he's like, hey, let's go out for dinner, and you're like, hold on a second, let me get my list. You get you start asking him the 93 questions.
Exactly. So long story short, it was just wild. It was just wild when he came back to the church. And I still didn't see him that way necessarily.
Mm,
But as we started hanging out, because our stories were very, very similar. And so we
okay.
connected in that. And then to be clear, I would normally say men, you know, connect with men and help men, women connect with women and help women
Mm,
through things, but
mhm,
our stories were so similar. I was offering him resources, and I'd
mm,
known his children when they were little
mm,
and
mm.
had them in my Sunday
Okay.
school class and that kind of thing.
I see.
And so my heart was just breaking for them because I knew what my kids had gone through.
Mm,
And so, long story, it, it just moved forward. And I just kept thinking, this is weird. This is weird. It's Rob, from years ago, Rob.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was just weird. And we hung out as friends, and feelings developed, and
I see.
and
Okay.
and so it was weird. So no, back then I did not look at him that way because I saw him, and I respected him. And so he
Okay.
did tick almost every single one of the
Which
things
ones
that
did
was
he
on my
miss?
list.
Give me a
Gosh,
couple that he missed. Come on.
he is not a romantic.
Okay. All right.
He is not a romantic at all. And his
uh,
sons are. And I look at them and I'm just thinking, where did that come from? That's
okay.
not, you did not get that from your dad. So, anyhow, so that was one of the ones.
That's good. That's a good story. That's a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into your career, it's so funny you mentioned the list. I had a list too because I was divorced. I was divorced for
Okay.
about 5 years, and now I've been married to
Mm-hmm.
Kim now for over 20 years. But
Wow. Okay,
uh,
good.
before I met Kim, there was about a 5 year gap there,
Mm.
and I had a list too. It wasn't 93 items; it was more like four. And I remember meeting Kim on the dance. I met her on the dance floor. We were two-stepping in Austin.
Love it.
You live in Dallas, by the way?
Dallas Fort Worth area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I was in Texas, down outside of Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and saw her at Honky Tonk and asked her to dance. And I started hitting her with questions, because I'm one of those secure. I'm just one of those type of guys. I'm going to hit you with a bunch of questions if I meet you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
was like, so how many kids do you have? She's like, I got two kids. I'm like, okay, strike one. I really don't want anybody else with kids. I said, what do you do for a living? She goes, well, I'm a CNA, a certified nurse's aide. Okay. I was like, okay, strike two. You don't make very much money. And then I think the third thing she said was she didn't go to school, didn't go to college. Okay, not educated.
Okay.
Strike three. And by then I'm like, okay, I'm not interested. And then I think the last thing she said was, yeah, my ex-husband doesn't pay child support, and so I'm kind of all by myself, the two kids. And by the
Wow.
way, my boyfriend and we have broken up. He's going to move out in a couple of weeks, but he hasn't moved out yet. I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta go. See ya.
That's great. Okay, so I'm a question asker too. I don't know if you remember that, but so what changed?
Well, a couple of weeks we exchanged phone numbers. Now this is way before cell phones and all that. We exchanged
Mm-hmm.
phone numbers, and I did not call her, and she finally
Okay.
called me and said, hey, remember me? And left a message on my answering machine, the ones you had to play when you got back home.
Right.
And she said, if you want to get together, give me a call. And she caught me on one of those. I came home on a Friday from being on the road
Okay.
working, and I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't have anything planned this weekend, and I'm kind of lonely. So I guess one little date won't hurt. And
Wow.
so that was it. Yeah, that was it.
That's great. I love
But
it. I love
uh,
it.
sometimes you got to, for the listeners, I'm sure people can relate.
Mm-hmm.
It is good to have
Mm-hmm.
a kind of a list, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
looking for a partner, it is good to have some things that you're hoping for. But
Mm-hmm.
but I will just tell you that love hits you in certain ways, and
Mm-hmm.
once it does, and sometimes the
Right.
list, or at least part of the list, goes out the window.
Right. No, and that is absolutely true. That is absolutely
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So,
So tell me about your career a little bit. So you get out of school, and
yes.
walk us through your early career before we get into your company now that you've started. Super proud of you, by the way,
Sure.
for stepping into the entrepreneurial world.
Thank you.
Communicate Great is
Mm-hmm.
Traci's company, and it's
Mm-hmm.
communicate.great.online is the
Mm-hmm.
website.
Yes.
Before we get to that, though, give me some early career stuff and kind of walk us into how you got to Communicate Great. Go ahead.
Sure. Sure. So let's go chronologically and let me tell you where Communicate Great started over 20 years ago.
Okay.
So even though I just started the company, so I was working on my master's. You mentioned the master's earlier, and I was
Mm-hmm.
toward the end of the program, and we had to come up with some kind of project for one of my classes. And so I thought, I really just want to do a workshop. Now, remember, introvert, right?
Yeah.
And so I came up with academic skills workshop for students and tied communication into it because that was my degree. So bachelor's and master's. And so created the workshop, had my curriculum and posted it, advertised it, had some people sign up. So the day came and I had one person show up. And I was on one hand, I was like, but on the other hand, I was absolutely fine with that because introvert. And
Yeah.
so as I spent the next 2 hours going through the material with him, he was eating it up and learning and getting it and having those aha moments. And whoa, that spoke to me. And
Mm.
so when I finished, I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to do retreats and workshops and help people kind of build their communication skills because you have a communication background
Mm-hmm.
too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that
Yep.
your
Yep.
degree?
Yep. Sure
And
was.
so how broad that is and how communication and
Mm-hmm.
effective communication skills touches
Yep.
every area of our life. And so I just thought, this is it. Well, then life happens and had kids. And so I was a stay at home mom too for the first few years of my children's life. And
Okay.
then the divorce happened when they were fairly young.
All
And
right.
so I became very active volunteering at church and also working at church. So the church had a CDC, a Child Development Center.
Mm.
And so I started subbing, and then I just kind of came on board and started doing other things. And then on the church side, I helped with a capital campaign and kind of ran that for the church, and they paid me there. And so did a lot with the church. And then so volunteering, I might as well have been full-time because I was volunteering basically full-time hours and then working, I would say part-time hours while the kids were in school.
Okay.
And so that went on for years doing that. And
Mm.
so
Mm.
with my background, I did some coaching stuff and got my certification with doing communication coaching, relationship
Ah,
coaching,
I see. Okay.
conflict resolution coaching. So all within that communication
Okay.
umbrella, mediation, that kind of thing. And so I was doing that for a different nonprofit. So you have the nonprofit of the church. Now I've switched over to nonprofit. And the idea behind that company was that the woman who started that was not going to let anyone not get the counseling or coaching help that they needed because of money. And so we had a lot of deeply discounted or free clients
Okay.
that we worked with. And her story was that when she was younger, she needed counseling and her parents couldn't afford it. And so she just wanted to make sure that no one went without the help because they couldn't afford it.
Well, that's
And
great,
so
but that's great. But how'd the nonprofit survive? Did she raise cash, or how'd you make it?
so she is still thriving.
Okay.
And I mean, her husband is the breadwinner. Let's put it that way. It's a
Okay.
ministry. It's a
Okay.
nonprofit ministry,
Okay.
and that's
Okay.
the truth. So
All right.
while I was doing that and really not making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
I was also teaching at college at night.
Oh,
And
where were you teaching?
so, where or what? What
Yeah,
did you?
both.
Wait,
Yeah, both.
okay. So I was teaching at Northwood University. It's a private business school.
Okay.
And so the campus that I was at was on the military base in Fort Worth. And
Uh-huh.
so I was doing that once a week at night for
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of the year. And so because the primary students were active or retired military, they were not the traditional 16-week courses or semesters, they were 8-week. And
Okay.
so I would go once a week, but the classes were 4 hours long. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really loved it because it was a one and done. I wasn't having to go 3 times a week for
Mm-hmm.
a couple of hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I taught interpersonal communication, loved it. And then I taught public speaking, loved it. But I loved them for two different reasons. So because I'm an introvert, I would have students, and they were both required courses. So that's how I got students.
Yeah.
But people would come into the public speaking terrified. And so that spoke to my heart, right? I knew what it was like to just want to go hide somewhere. And so those were my students that I just fell in love. I loved all of my students, please know that. But the ones who were afraid were the ones who I really,
Okay.
my heart went to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I am a cheerleader. I am going to tell you, yes, you can. I'm going to get in your face and, encourage you. And so I loved that class for that reason. But then I loved the interpersonal communication class because it was a chance to teach people those interpersonal communication skills, what I wanted to do. What I did not like and I did that for about 10 years. And so what I did not like about teaching college was I did not like grading. I did not like turning in the grades. I did not like the administrative part of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Man, just let me get in there and meet these students and develop relationships and teach them something. And I would say, if you leave my class and you have one thing that changed your life, I did my job. And
Okay.
so that was what was important to me, that my classes made a difference in their lives moving forward. And the great thing is I've had some students come back, circle around and talk about, for instance, in the public
That's wonderful.
speaking,
Yeah.
in the public speaking, I started counting every those crutch things. I started counting off points after they had been in the class for a while. And they would come back and say, man, every time I listen to somebody now, I start hearing their uhs and their ums. So it's great. But anyhow, so I really, really loved that.
Okay.
So went from there to I went from there to being the director of advancement at a small private school that my kids went to, and then they graduated and I stayed on. And I loved that job, but that job was killing me because I was putting in insane hours because, you're with director of advancement, it's everything that pushes the school forward, right? So it's everything from trying to bring money in to trying to get enrollment up to working with volunteers, to letting people know, hey, we're here. So that was just really taking a toll on me.
Okay.
And so last May, it was affecting my health physically, mentally. And so I just had to walk away. I
Okay.
really had to walk away.
This would be May of
So
2022.
yes,
Okay. All right. Very good. And
yes, May of 2022.
then you took what? Go a month or two off, and what am I going to do next?
So I was looking for jobs, right? And finding some available. And I just started feeling nauseous. Like every time I started looking at these jobs, I literally wanted to throw up. And I just started having that voice come back in my head. And you remember? You remember what you
Mm,
wanted to do all those years ago?
wow.
And so I just started getting really, really excited about that and looking at starting my own company. And so was, um, I was going to start moving forward with that. And I did to some extent. I started looking, and then my mom became ill.
I
And
see.
so she was diagnosed on June 6th with glioblastoma. And on
I don't know what that
July,
is. What is that?
so it is a rare tumor in your brain, and it is terminal. You do not survive. And so she was 79. And
Okay.
so we were
Okay.
able to celebrate her birthday on June 10th. And my brother told her that she, in the hospital when she was diagnosed, my brother told her she had a tumor. And she said, that's not good. But because of where it was in her frontal right and left lobe, just growing right here. It was a lemon size at that point. And so she'd
Was it visible? Was it visible? Could you see it? No. Okay.
no,
Okay.
no, but so you have seizures with this.
Ah,
And there were times that I could, whew, um,
okay.
I would hold her face in my hands.
Yeah.
We might have to edit this out. And I could feel the vibration from the tremor.
Mm.
So
Was she diagnosed? Did she feel? I'm curious on this. Did she feel ill for a period of time? She's like, man, something is wrong. And then boom, she went in. They did the scans, and they said, hey, this is the situation. Is that kind of what happened?
yeah, you know what's funny, Steve, is we thought she had dementia because she just
Um,
wasn't right. And, you know, at Christmas, she said to my sister and I with the family there, I don't know how to cook anymore. And we thought it was because you know, your
I
kids are
see.
gone. It's just mom and dad. You're out of practice. But looking back, we knew she meant she didn't know how to cook anymore. And so,
Yeah, so you thought early signs of dementia or something, right? Okay.
yes,
Was she having
yes.
any, was there any pain, like headache pain?
Yes. And so that was something else. I would watch her lower her head and just kind of grasp whatever she was near, and she would shut her eyes and she would just start doing this.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And looking back,
Yep.
we now
Yep.
know it was
Yep.
this tumor growing in the front of her skull.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, yes.
Wow.
And so,
When she was, and I don't want to burden you with this too much, but
no,
I
it's okay.
I want to ask this question. When she was diagnosed as terminal, when they said, hey,
Yes.
this is a situation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it is terminal.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, was she in the hospital until she passed, or did she get to go out and do some things?
They basically said you need to consider hospice. And so we met with a hospice representative, and she explained everything, which we understood hospice, especially my dad, who had been in the nursing home hospital
Right.
business,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we basically left the hospital and went home to hospice, and they
Yeah.
set
I mean,
us
I think
up.
that's great. I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
great move. Yeah. I would
Mm-hmm.
have done this. I would have done
Yes.
the same. I would have done the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, absolutely. If I'm ever told that I'm terminal, I'm the last thing I want to do is spend those last few months in a hospital bed. Forget that. I'm gonna
Right.
either be at home or whatever.
Right.
Were you asking your dad at the time? Were you like, Dad, what's up with mom? Like, Dad, something's wrong. Were you pushing your dad like, hey, Dad, what's up?
So he was the one, because we live in two different states. I'm in Texas and they're still in Oklahoma.
Mm,
But he was the one that said, okay, when you come, I'm kind of worried about your mom. She is showing signs of dementia.
okay.
So because of his background, he understood that and knew what that looked like.
Yeah.
And so he was the one letting me know
I see.
what his concerns were. And so yes, so
Mm.
we left the hospital, went home to hospice, and June 6th, she was diagnosed. July 6th, she passed.
Wow, that was
So
fast. That's
it
fast.
well, it was, but it wasn't, because we look back and we see how long we think she had it. We think
I
she
see.
had it at the end of the previous year. And
Mm.
so everything I researched was 6 to 8 months,
Ah, okay.
top 10, 12 if you're lucky. So they basically said, we could try to stop it, but it's not going to change anything, and it's going to diminish her quality of life.
Mm, I
And
think you made the right.
so
I think you made the right decision, and you got to be
we
with her
did.
during that time.
We
That was
did.
a blessing that you actually weren't working full time right
Yes.
then, because you got to be with her during those
Yes.
last few weeks, which I think is
Month.
wonderful. Yeah, that's
Yes.
great. I mean, that's great.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I look back at that, and I
Yep.
literally thank
Yep.
God that he gave me
Mhm.
that last month of her life with her.
Mm.
So
No doubt. Yeah,
yeah.
no doubt. That's
Mm-hmm.
special. That's special. So then
Mm-hmm.
you get through that traumatic time,
Yes.
emotional time,
Yes.
and during that, I'm just assuming that during the emotional time with your mom, you're also having moments where you're like, okay, what am I going to do with my life when this is
Yes.
over? Right?
Yes.
When I get
Mm-hmm.
this done with my
Mm-hmm.
mom, then what am I going to do?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Exactly. So
Wow.
yeah, so I have the I'm not going to say burden, but the thoughts in my head of leaving the school that I really loved and that three of my children graduated from. And that was like a divorce in itself. I
Wow.
loved those
Yeah.
people and
Yeah.
I loved that school, but it was not, that was not good for me. So I had that, and people
And at,
still.
and at the time you were single and by yourself. You weren't in a relationship, or were
No, no,
you?
no. I was. I'd been
Oh,
married to Rob like
oh, okay.
12
Okay.
years at this
Okay. All
point.
right. Okay.
So luckily during the COVID time, we got an RV. So Rob was thinking, okay, look, and it was at the beginning when we didn't know what COVID was, what the
Mm-hmm.
implications were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we got an RV, and he said, look, if somebody gets sick, we'll just put them in the RV and it'll be safer for us, or we'll go to the RV and leave people at home. And so we had that RV. And we would travel, once a month. And so we were able to take the RV up and put that in mom and dad's driveway. They have
Oh,
two
wow.
driveways.
Okay. I see.
We were
I
to
see.
put that in their driveway, and we literally lived in our RV, and I would just go out the RV and into mom
Yeah.
and dad's house
That's
and
cool.
and
That's cool.
help. And so Rob was able to work from the RV,
Okay.
and because you can do anything now pretty much.
Absolutely. I do it all the time. My wife and I work all the time
Exactly.
from our travel trailer. Absolutely. Do it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So all right. So this is done. You finished with your mom's estate
mhm.
situation. How do you decide? How'd you come up with Communicate Great? First of all, how'd you come up with the name, and walk me through? Yeah. Tell me how you came up with it.
It just popped into my head, and obviously you can guess I'm very religious, and so I pray all the time, and I'm like, okay, Lord, this is your brainchild from years ago. This is what you put in my heart years ago, and
Yeah.
so let's do this. And so just Communicate Great just popped into my head. And rule follower, I was like, is that grammatically correct? And so I looked it up on three different websites to make sure it was, and it's grammatically correct. And so I just thought that's a fun name. And
Okay.
so you know what? I like to laugh. And I just truly believe that when you are having fun, you learn more because you're more engaged. And so I just think Communicate Great's
Okay.
just kind of a fun, quirky name. And
Okay.
that's really what I want to do with people, is just have fun.
Give me the 3-minute elevator pitch for the company. Tell us, if you were just pitching your services or the
Mm-hmm.
company to somebody for the first time, give it to us. Go for it.
Sure. And I don't know that it's going to be 3 minutes. So I work with businesses, professionals, individuals, anybody who wants to level up their communication skills. But it's really about connection. So for businesses, I have a client, and I go work with his team, and I asked him initially, do you want to do business, go from the business standpoint or from the personal standpoint? And he said, well, if you come in and teach us things that we can use personally, we're going to use it professionally.
Agreed.
So I go in and work with those kinds of things. You know, we talk about navigating potential conflict and listening skills and that kind of thing. And so it's really about connection, whether you're doing it for work or whether you're doing it for your personal life. It's about connecting at a deeper level for work with the people that you work with, or administration, or current clients or future clients. So, you know, you talk about the know, like, and trust factor. Communication is just has its fingerprints all over the know, like, and trust factor, right? And so we really focus on those kinds of things that are going to level up your skills so that you can connect to people again at that deeper level. And then on the personal side, it's kind of the same thing. You want to be able to communicate with your children, your spouse, your parents, your siblings, your friends, you know, everyone, your neighbors, at a deeper, more effective level.
Are you targeting small business, medium business? Are you targeting individuals, families, couples, all of the above? What's your target?
So it depends on the product. We have products kind of for everything. My focus right now is really business. And so I like having fun, you know, I like having fun. And so if I were to say, you know, hey, Steve, let me come in and talk to your team and let's do kind of a team building activities. And so I just love working with people. And so all of the above, but I just really have a passion for being with groups. That's my, you know, kind of going back to teaching. This is where I get to teach, but I don't have to grade. I don't have to do all of that administrative stuff. I just get to have fun with people.
Is it like conference room, seminar type stuff? Or is this like, hey, we're going to go to the mountains on a retreat for a week?
You know, it's interesting you say that. For now, I'm going into places, but I have retreats definitely on the radar, on the radar. So actually, if you go to my website, I will say conferences, workshops, retreats. And so I actually have a retreat kind of in the back of my head for women in business. And so actually we've got a conference coming up for women in business, but it's the business side of things. But I want to take women for a retreat who are in business because, man, do we need to take a breath and just hit the reset button sometimes and take care of ourselves. And so, you know, I know that women are pretty good about self-care, but some women aren't. And so sometimes self-care goes beyond getting a mani-pedi, right? Or a facial or a massage. Sometimes you need to do some inner reset stuff. So definitely on the radar. And I also have a thing on my website that says, if you want to customize something, let's talk.
Okay, very good. And for the listeners to get a hold of you, should they just go to communicategreat.online and I'm sure there's a contact form there and so forth? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And do you also want them to reach out to you on LinkedIn or any other social media platform that you want to mention here?
Anyway, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, anyway, through the website, through social media, I'm absolutely fine with. Connect at communicategreat.online is another one. So yeah, just anyway.
Let me ask you this. I've had a lot of coaches and things like that on the podcast, a bunch of them. And what separates you from the pack? What makes Traci unique or different, you think, compared to a lot of other certified coaches that you've met?
I can't answer about every single other one, but I can tell you what my passion is, and my passion is for helping people. And so because I am wired to be a cheerleader, so exhortation is my spiritual gift, and that means we tell the truth and we encourage others. And so I am going to be straightforward, but my heart is to really invest in you and make sure that you are getting what you need. And so to me, it's not about money. And I'm not saying every other coach out there is about money. I know many who are not, but man, I want to have fun and I want to invest in you and I want to love on you and I want to encourage you and tell you, yes, you can do this.
Okay. Very good. Now, your faith
Mhm.
is very powerful and has come out in this conversation a lot.
Mhm.
What happens when you sign up the construction company?
Mhm.
And all the guys everybody that works there curses and drinks and is loud, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to go on a retreat, all right. We want to go do something." And it's just like not the atmosphere you're used to. Do you turn away that client, or how do you handle that,
No,
Traci?
no, no, I don't turn away that client because my company is not a faith-based company.
Okay,
I am a faith-based
okay,
CEO, right?
okay, all
Founder. I
right,
am, but my company is not. And so I'm going to love on you anyhow. I
okay,
don't care if you
okay,
cuss. I don't care if you drink. I'm
okay.
no. And just know that when I was teaching, I had a lot of students who cussed.
Okay,
And
all right.
full disclosure, you get me in a car and somebody almost hits me, you're going to hear some words come out of my mouth. You absolutely will. So
Uh,
I am not
okay,
saying
all
I have
right.
never cussed and do not cuss.
All right, let me ask you another question.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of terrible people skills these days, which really is about communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every day. I mean, I'm in the recruiting business, right? Riderflex is a recruiting firm for a living, so we're interviewing and talking to people for a living for the most part, and then plus the podcast. And there are a lot of self-centered, narcissistic type people out there, a ton, and it's the majority by far. It's the majority. I would say 80% of the people that I meet or I deal with, they don't know how to listen properly. They don't ask the right questions to engage you the other direction. It's all about their story.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
that is a very large majority of the people I meet. And every once in a while, my partner and I will go to dinner with a client or a prospect or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll actually have good people skills, and they'll ask questions and listen properly and engage you. But that is rare, Traci.
Mm-hmm.
What is causing that? What has it always been like that, or is it just does it seem like it's getting worse?
No, I think both. I think it has always been like that, but it also is getting worse, if that makes sense. So
Okay.
it's interesting that you talk about narcissism. Actually, on one of our earlier podcasts, we talked about being other oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did talk about kind of that narcissistic
Yes.
person. And also in the listening skills, we talk about that as well. And a lot of times you just have people who don't want to take responsibility for things, and that's a big challenge. That's a
Mm.
big challenge, especially if they're a narcissist. And so it's really interesting that you talk about that, because this has come into my personal life very recently. I've started figuring out that there are people in my life who legitimately are narcissists,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yeah.
just recognizing it. So I don't know if I've just had this rose colored thing happening, but I've been doing some research on this, because you have the spectrum. And I know that in business you don't have this luxury, but in your personal life you have the spectrum of people saying run, right? Just shut that person down. But sometimes if there's somebody who's close to you, you may not either have that luxury,
Right.
or you may not feel like you can just shut that person
Great
out.
point. Great point.
And
What do you do?
man, you have to navigate. I would say it depends on how damaging that person is. If it is someone that
Mm.
they're just mean to you, they're
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
mean, but you can take it. That's one thing. Just know that they're going to be mean and just let it roll off your back, right?
Okay.
So there's a verse in Proverbs that says, it's to a man's credit to overlook an offense. And so for every offense that you can overlook, if you can truly overlook it, that's where our own egos and pride come into play, right? And so if you can truly overlook that person being mean, and you're fine. But if they are damaging you in terms of sabotaging a relationship that you're in,
Mm.
or damaging your reputation or that sort of thing, you may need to take stock and figure out if you need to buffer yourself and protect yourself. And so it really depends on the type of narcissism and what the attacks are.
Okay. Okay. Very good.
So,
You mentioned a podcast. Do you want to talk about that or mention the podcast here?
sure, absolutely. So it's Communicate Grading. You can find it on Spotify, Anchor, Apple. And so, I wrangled my daughter into coming on board and helping me with marketing because, I need to focus on some other things. So we kind of share the marketing hat. But one day she said, okay, we're going to do a podcast. And I said, yeah, I know. That's down the road, right? We'll do that down the road. And she said, no, today. And so I argued with her and she kept saying, no, we're starting today. So Steve, let me tell you this hot mess. So we had no equipment. So we took a box and we put it on my desk, and we took one of those black puffy coats and tucked it up inside the box and tucked my laptop inside that to try to make some sort of soundproof little studio. So she and I were sitting side by side, leaning into the laptop, faces this close. And that is how we did our very first podcast.
That's good
and
stuff.
So just go for it. So anyhow, so we did. And so we are 30 episodes in.
Oh, 30 episodes. Okay, very good. Is it available
30,
everywhere? Available all over?
Okay. It should be pretty close to everywhere. Definitely Spotify,
okay.
Apple. And so it's grown. You're going to listen to some episodes where it sounds like we're talking into a tin can. We've tried, okay. You try different things. And actually this last podcast, I tried a whole new thing and it was terrible, but you put it out and you just hope that people have understanding and grace. And so anyhow,
that's so funny. One of my youngest sons, all my children are grown too, but my youngest boy was like, Dad, he one day, I can't even remember when this was, a few months back. He's like, Dad, he goes, your early interviews were just terrible. So hey, it's all good. So your daughter, what's her name?
Emma.
Okay. Is she the one that is pictured with you on your LinkedIn profile?
Yes.
Okay. And she's on the website as well.
She is actually, I have a picture up on I think it's on our Meet the Team page, maybe about us. I don't know. One of those. So anyhow, with us eating the ice cream cookies, we're kind of in black and white. That's one of my favorite pictures. And so, I put it up and she said, Mom, I was so young then. And I said, yeah, but I love that picture. And that talks about, that is a visual of who we are. We like laughing. And so most of our podcast episodes, what you don't know is we've just been laughing really hard as we're going into recording.
Oh, very good. Now, are they video or just audio?
So the beginning were audio, and I kept telling her, Emma, we've got to go. No, I'm sorry. Yes, I said it right. So I said, we've got to go video because you are funny. She is funny. She is funny. That's why I laugh so much.
Okay, good.
And so the last several have been visual video.
Very good. Okay. I think that's great. And it's Communicate Great. That's the podcast.
Yes.
Okay. It's on YouTube?
Not yet. I've been telling her we have a YouTube channel with one video up. So we've got several that we need to add. So we will be going over to YouTube, just not. All right. Not
and are you having guests, or is it just you and her talking? Okay, you are. Okay, great.
We are. And so the one that we just did, she said, Mom, and we have guests scheduled, but she said, I love our guests, but I just want to do you and me again. And
combination is good. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. I'm excited for you. Hey, it takes guts to step out and be an entrepreneur. It really does. And it's not an easy thing to get a brand going. It's very hard, which I'm sure you're realizing pretty quickly.
It is. It's a lot. Here's the deal. I'm putting in just as many hours as I was director of advancement, but I'm working for me now. Right. Yes. And so if I need to walk away for an hour in the middle of the day, I walk away.
Yes.
So
yes. And that, you can't put a price tag on that. I tell people that all the time. In fact, somebody called me this morning. I just had a phone call this morning from a friend of mine, a former colleague. And, she asked me, she says, you've been doing this for like 7 years. She goes, are you finally making what you were making when you were an executive working for other people. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm still not. I said, I was still making a lot more money back then, but
Mm-hmm.
the value of
Yes.
owning your own business and working for yourself and being able to, like you said, step away when I want to without having to
Mm-hmm.
ask anybody. I mean, I don't even know how much that's worth, but it's worth a lot to me.
Exactly. And traveling, we just take
Yes.
with Rob being able to work remotely and I could work remotely, we can just
Yeah.
actually in a few weeks, we're going to travel and we're going to go meet our oldest son and his wife. And
Excellent.
so we're going to go do that and we'll work during the day. They work during the day remotely and we'll just hang out with them in the evening and on the weekends. And,
Wonderful. It's
you
a
know,
wonderful thing, isn't it?
it
It's a
is.
wonderful
It
thing.
really is.
Are you
Mm-hmm.
using Starlink for your internet, or what are you using?
No, but I did talk to Rob about getting that because that's
Yeah.
what our son and his wife uses Starlink.
Yeah,
And so,
that's what me and Kim use. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a
okay.
fan. Yep.
Okay, good. That's good to
Yep.
hear. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure we will definitely, especially since we're about to be gone for a couple of weeks and working
Yeah.
from who knows where with what kind of reception. So, that's
Mhm.
good to hear.
Well, Traci, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast. I'm happy for you and I'm rooting for you as things move along.
Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate you having me on, but I appreciate that we reconnected. I did have respect for you in college. I did not see that cocky side of you at all. So,
Well,
I
thanks.
just, I'm grateful that we've been able to reconnect. So,
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Traci.
thank you.